What is going on, YouTube? Lucky Madman here. We're working on a video today here. We are live on Twitch. The topic for discussion today is the top 5 tips I can give beginners in Summoners War in 2020. So there's a lot of information out there. A lot of it I feel like it's a little bit outdated. There's been a lot of changes to the game. And I thought, you know what? Let's make a video about what I think is the top 5 tips I can give early game players in the game. Alrighty. So my top 5 tips. Let's start off with tip number 1, chat. Alright. My first tip I give, or I'd like to give to early game players or beginners, would be to remember why you started playing the game, right? Did you play to summon and just have fun? Or did you start playing Summoners War because you wanted to progress through and try be competitive? You know, everyone's got different goals in the game. You know, some people want to play and just summon and, you know, Pokedex completion. And other people want to play because they want to compete. Everyone's got their own thoughts of what fun is. But you got to remember why you started playing, right? Don't go down the path that you don't want to go down. Just remember why you play the game and continue playing it that way, okay? So, I started off playing this game as a Pokedex completion sort of game. But then the inner competitive me came out. And I wanted to get better and better and better. So I started learning. And improving where I could. I took a very long route. It took me about a year to just break into Giant Speed 10 back in the day. And I reached a point where I just clicked and I started learning how to actually progress because I didn't understand any concepts. I didn't know what runes were. I didn't know what monsters were good. I just played, right? So I had no direction in the game. My tip number 2 that I have for beginners are to not watch outdated guides, right? There's been a lot of changes to Summoners War in the last few years. Summoners War has gone through plenty of changes throughout the last 6 years that it's been out, right? And there are a lot of outdated YouTube guides that people still use. People still referring to fusing certain units like Veramos. People still using outdated units like Fire Viking. Back in the day, it used to be used in Dragons. Yeah, so it's changed quite a bit over the time. So don't watch outdated guides. Try to look up the latest set of guides that you can and refer to those. Because, yeah, especially now with B12 out and everything's changed. There's been a big change to the game. So try to adapt as best you can using the latest guides if you do use guides, okay? My third tip that I'd like to give beginner players is figure out what your goals are and how you plan to get there. So have a goal in mind when you are deciding what you need to do in the game, right? Find out what that is. My goal may be, I want to be doing GB12 by next free rune removal day. What do I need to do to be able to get there? And that's when you look at your monsters. That's what you look at. Maybe you look at a guide and find out the best free-to-play team. What you do is then you start trying to allocate your units, your resources towards getting there. You may need to farm GB10 for a while to be able to get the rune depth up, to be able to rune those units that you have by FRR, and trying to figure out what your stepping stone goals are to get there, right? So think about that when you go through. It's all about resource management, especially in early game. And yeah, think about what you need to do. So for example, let's use Giant Speed 12, which I'll come out with the video later on showing a pretty solid free-to-play team that you can use for Giant Speed 12. Let's think about the units that you can use there in a free-to-play team. You can use a unit like Sigmarus, which you'll need a plan to fuse. So you'll need to make a lot of 4-star units that you'll have to fuse maybe. You'll have to awaken them. You'll have to then get Sigmarus and 6-star him and then awaken him. Think about all those resources that you need to build. You need to get a unit like Crow and you'll have to 2A him as well. So think about how you're going to get through all those components of the game. And you got to remember all your resources you have available. You have your limited D-hole energy. You have your limited crystal supply early on in the game if you're free to play. You have limited energy, so you got to be very careful about how you approach it, especially mana as well. So you got to be very careful with what sort of runes you upgrade, okay? So think about all your resources as well, because they're very important things to look out for. Because especially early game, you're going to be very light on certain things that you want to focus on, okay? You'll be very light on your resources they have available. Okay, number 4, guys, is be patient, okay? Because if you're trying to fly through this game, you will not enjoy the game getting through early game progression, okay? Enjoy the journey and learn from the mistakes you make along the way, all right? There are certain things you won't be able to do because you won't have certain aspects of a team. You'll have to figure out workarounds, right? You may not have illusion, so you may not be able to speed clear through giants, but that's okay. You can do a slightly slower team that may be still pretty effective, right? You may not be able to speed clear, so keep that in mind. You may not be able to get Fran for a while because you need event points. So think about the timing of events as well. You know, maybe when you start the game, there may not be any events out. So it may take you a bit longer to get a unit like Fran. So keep that in mind when you are progressing. So yeah, patience is very important in a game like Summon as well. It is a game that you will not complete in a week or a month or 6 months or a year or 2 years. I'm still playing the game after 6 years now. And I'm still learning and I'm still progressing. And it's part and parcel of this sort of game that you play. So keep that in mind when you are approaching a game like Summon as well. If you're feeling like you're falling behind your buddies, hey, internal competition is fun. If you can always look at the positives, okay? So make sure you always keep it as positive as you can. Try progress through as best you can personally and view it that way, okay? So patience is important. Because if you start doing irrational things like spending on your crystals on premium packs because you think you need one unit, you're going to lose all the progression you'll make to be able to move forward in the game. So be careful of what you do. Be careful with your resources. Going back to point number 3. And be very specific with what you want to do in the game, okay? Point number 5. All right, point number 5. This is one of the more important ones. This one requires a lot more focus, and it's all around understanding the core mechanics of the game. Okay, what I mean by this is understanding how runes work, understanding how units synergize together, understanding how the dungeon bosses work, understanding how grinds and gems and runes, how runes work, how grinds and gems work, and how artifacts kind of all line up together. So thinking about all those mechanics together is a very important part. Spending time to get an understanding of that aspect is very important. Okay, understanding what substats make sense together on runes will help you progress much quicker. Because I've seen a lot of people struggle, and the main reason they struggle is because they cannot get past the knowledge of runes. And runes are too important for you to undermine, okay? Because you may be upgrading runes as an early game player that is actually not helping you much. You may be selling runes that maybe you should be keeping because, you know, some people think, oh, I don't need these sort of runes. Like this purple rune might be good for an early game player because they may end up selling it because it doesn't have speed. You know, thinking speed is king may not necessarily make you go far in the game. Because in PvE content, speed's not the most important factor. Okay, so keep that in mind. When it comes to grinds and gems and how you use them and apply them to your runes, thinking of it not just on the rune itself, but also thinking about it as a whole picture. So maybe even looking at it from a monster perspective. It makes a big difference because you may be gemming or grinding. You might be gemming out the wrong stat, which could totally break a really good rune. So think about those aspects as well. But this is getting a little bit too deep because this is meant to be beginners. I'm starting talking about grinds and gems. So let's bring it back a notch. Try to understand rune concepts. Okay, understand runes. Understand how the dungeon bosses work. Understand how buffs and how beneficial effects and harmful effects work. Understand how certain unit skills work, and you'll progress through this game like it's nothing. Okay, this game requires a bit of knowledge. It requires a bit of understanding about how equipment or runes or gear work on units. Understanding what set bonuses do as well. Just really think about what each mechanic of the game is asking you to look for. Okay, so those are my top 5 tips. If you guys have any other ones that you think that I may have missed out on in this video, please let me know in the comment section below. That is going to do us for this video. We'll continue the rest of our discussions here on Twitch. Maybe I'll grab some snippets if we have any good conversations here, and I'll drop it in the video. If you guys don't know, I stream quite regularly on Twitch, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends as well. Usually starting at about 8 PM every night here in Australia, so 8 PM Melbourne time. Make sure you guys leave a follow on Twitch as well, so you get notified when I do go live. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I will see you all next time. And number 4 is very simple. Okay? Number 4 Sorry, number 4 is... I messed up, chat. It's the wrong order. Number 4 is the wrong order. We're going to have to cut that out. Okay, number 4 is the wrong order. Wait, I'm fixing it. I changed it. I changed it on my Excel spreadsheet, but I didn't change it in my dot points. All right, this is a fail, but it's right. That's why it's YouTube and I can edit it, right?